The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to Hoop Ball DFS Today. I am Andrew Hanson, joined by the one and only Vancouver man, Myles Hartley. And Myles, I know you've got some Zach LaVine in your lineups today, which was a very good choice since he went off for 49 against Charlotte. How's everything going for you out there on the West Coast?
It's going pretty good. And yeah, I mean, Zach LaVine finally had that game that everybody's been looking for. And I mean, today he was priced pretty reasonably. I know on fantasy draft he was priced at 11,000, so I couldn't pass up on that. And I threw him in a couple lineups there, and it's paying dividends.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's fun to see him finally break out, and he's sort of puzzling the last couple games why he'd been struggling so much. But I think that's why it's really important to pay attention to the news. There was a big article that came out about him not feeling like his coach had his back, and there was a lack of trust. And then with all that attention on him, whether they sat down and chatted or not, he finally just took the bull by the horns, no pun intended, and got after it and finally played to his potential. So that was a lot of fun. And then the other standout from that game, we got to give props to our buddies Coach and Micah Patria, because speaking of news and narratives, they mentioned Kobe White going back to Charlotte, and he went off for 28, 2, 3, and 2. So definitely brought big value on this DFA slate on Saturday. And of course, this is Saturday night. We're going to be talking about the Sunday slate here in a minute. But one other big piece of news this weekend in the NBA are the potential changes to the schedule and playoff play-in games. And the one that I think that is most relevant to us here in DFS are those potential play-in games. And of course, the format is going to be that the 7 and 8 seeds will play a one-game playoff. The winner of that is in the playoffs. 9 and 10 are going to play each other. Loser of that goes home. Winner of that game then gets another win-or-go-home game against the loser of the 7-8 matchup. What do you think about that potential format, Myles?
Yeah, I'm liking the idea of it. And I mean, the one thing I too like about like the 9th and 10th spot getting a chance to make it in is that, throughout the season, sometimes there's some big injuries that really affect those teams. They could have maybe been in the even top 6 or 7, but because of injuries, they've fallen to those spots. And, with our current style, if you're not in those top 8, you're just hooped. But, with that, if you're 9th, 10th, you still have the chance to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to make the end of the regular season more competitive. Teams are going to be fighting to get up to that 5 and 6 seed, so they have to deal with the play-on games. Some of the teams that are in that 9, 10, 11, 12 zone, may try a little bit harder to get into the playoffs. So it's just going to add some intrigue. And then, of course, it's going to create some new fun contests, because we're going to get those one-game showdown slates with, for all the marbles. So I think guys are going to be playing really hard in that do-or-die situation. So I think it's going to create some really fun slates. Now the only thing is we're going to have to wait a couple years for it if they approve it. But that's a lot of fun to look forward to. So, speaking of showdown slates, we're going to start our analysis of the Sunday games with a showdown slate. But first, we've got to thank our title sponsor, the one and only Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. And I certainly had my 2 cups this morning. That's now a staple of my day. And we are big fans here at Hoop Ball. We thank them for their support. You can check them out at hawaiianisles.com. You can place your orders on Amazon, searching for Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. And you can also find them on Twitter at HI Kona Coffee. So without any further ado, Myles, let's jump into this afternoon showdown. It's a Texas Showdown on Sunday at 3:30 Eastern between the Mavs and the Rockets. Why don't you start out by giving us your perspective on the Mavericks?
Yeah, it's going to be a high-scoring game here. I'm thinking it's probably going to have one of the highest over-unders on this day. Of course looking at Luka to throw into the captain spot. I mean, the kid's just been unreal lately. He's half assist away from averaging a triple double this season. And what was that on the Wednesday game? Or no, sorry, the Tuesday game against the Warriors. He had a triple double in 26 minutes. So he doesn't even need a whole allotment of minutes to get you value.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, just crazy. And he is priced, I believe, he's a
12.2.
12.2. And what's
and Harden is 13 even.
Yeah. So he's $800 less, and then when it gets into the captain spot, he's $1,200 less than Harden. So I think Luka makes the most sense for the captain spot. I mean, Harden's always in play as well, but I like Luka more for the just getting a little bit more value. And then for the other guys on Dallas side there, it looks like Seth Curry may be back from his illness, but I mean, if he doesn't come back, I'm looking at Tim Hardaway Jr. as one of the complimentary guys to throw in there. I think he's priced at what, 4,000?
That's 4, correct. Yep.
And I mean, he's on this season, he's been getting around at least 22 minutes a game. So even if Seth Curry is back, he's one of the guys I'm looking at because, his floor seems to be around, 20 DK points. And I mean, it's not terrible. It's not great, but all those guys are in that range. They're all going to be around that. And he's, to me, one of the more safe plays at that price point. And then the other guy I'm looking at on that side of the ball is Porzingis. Over the last 4 games, he's had 4 double doubles over the past 5 games. And, so it's one of the guys I'm looking at. His price too is fairly reasonable. I believe he's sitting at 7.
He's at 8.6.
8.6. Okay. So yeah, those are the guys I'm looking on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I like you. I like your analysis there. Luka you have to play him here. I really don't see how you could go through this slate and not play Luka and James Harden. I mean, you're really only, I think, hoping that one of them gets injured if you're not playing both of them here. So Luka certainly will be in my lineups, and that, of course, is the question: do you play him as the captain or not? I think it's worth exploring both builds. And then I'm with you in terms of the other Mavericks, the first 2 that you mentioned, with Seth Curry being probable on Saturday night. That's the latest we've seen. He's going to be in my lineups if he starts because he's only 3.4. So that price tag is way too low. And, if we're going to play Harden and Luka, we gotta get some value pricing in here. And he's not typically a quote unquote value play. I don't think. He's usually priced a little bit higher, but he's been out. And so his price is down to 3.4. And yeah, I agree. Tim Hardaway Jr. at 4.0. He's been hot lately. Probably can't expect him to keep shooting as well as he has from 3. But again, he's at that 4,000 range, really nice price, especially if for some reason Curry does not play. And then I personally am not really interested in any of the other Mavericks. And that's because I'm looking at Porzingis versus Clint Capella. Of course, we're only on a 1-game slate. We can only play 6 players. Clint Capella on the other side is 9.4. And I just like his upside a little bit more than Porzingis. Recently he's been a little bit more consistent, putting up bigger fantasy numbers. So Clint Capella is the big that I'm interested in the under 10K price range. And then Harden, of course, like I mentioned, I'm going to be playing him. And I'm curious to see what you say, but I came across some interesting trends here looking at Harden and Westbrook. Harden has scored over 70 fantasy points in 6 of the last 10 games. And in those last 10 games, sort of looking at the shot breakdown, he has attempted at least 10 free throws in all 10 games. Compared to Westbrook, in the last 10 games, he hasn't attempted 10 free throws in any of those games. And Harden has attempted at least 10 three-pointers in 9 of the last 10. Westbrook has attempted 10 three-pointers in only 1 of 10. So I think that's a good way to sort of analyze why Harden is so much more expensive than Westbrook, why he's been producing so much more. Westbrook is really just taking that secondary role and very active, sort of coast to coast, pushing the pace. But Harden has just not really slowed down with Westbrook's presence, and he's just doing his thing. So for me, he's going to be in the lineup, and Westbrook at 10.4 is just a little bit too pricey for me. Then for the other Houston players here, we've got House as questionable. If he plays, I like him at 6.4. If he doesn't, then we can look at Ben McLemore at 4.4 and even Cephalosha at 1.4, because you're probably going to need one really cheap guy here. And then Tucker is in consideration here at 4.8 and Rivers at 3.6. And the builds that I've been playing with, I'm looking at either really 1 to 2 Mavericks at most for most of the lineups that I'm building. So that's why I mentioned a couple more of these, mid-priced Rockets, because I'm going to try to get probably at least 4 Rockets in most of my lineups.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to hit on the Westbrook struggling, because I have a note here too that over the last 9 games, there's only been 3 times where he's able to at least hit 40 DK points or get over 40 DK points. And I mean, I think it's just to do too with the fact that he's getting less boards with, Capella's been nuts. He's been averaging 20 rebounds a game over the last 6 games. And he just missed making 6 games in a row with 20 rebounds. I think he got 19 last game. And yeah, that's the other thing I had to note too of he's just not drawing the fouls like Harden is. Harden's just been shooting free throws pretty much half the game, it seems.
Like a machine.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, he's just falling into that secondary role, it seems, and he's not one of the guys I was targeting on this slate either. What I had been kind of doing from one of my builds I was doing, I think is I don't do a ton of the showdown, so you're probably better at the showdown slates than I am. But the one thing I was playing with the idea of is doing Luka and having Porzingis and Clint Capella as my 3 kind of big guys. And then not really having any of those guys that are bottom of the barrel. They're who was that guy you were talking about that was 1.4?
Thabo Cephalosha.
Yeah, so I was avoiding that kind of and going more I was hoping that with if Daniel House is ruled out, Ben McLemore, because he's been solid. He's been averaging 25 DK points over his 4 starts this season. And then PJ Tucker I was also looking at. He's had his, he's PJ Tucker. He'll have great games. He'll have okay, and then he'll have the stinkers. But he gets always around, 35, 36 minutes a game. So yeah, those are my take on those guys.
Right. So on that lineup you just described, you're leaving Harden out.
Yeah, I would be. Yes, I know that's also a very dicey play.
Yeah, but hey, certainly Harden could go, have a decent game and put up 55 fantasy points, and there's a chance that the build you just described would outscore it, no doubt.
Yeah.
And so that's what you have to do. You certainly have to get creative and take some chances. And the other thing I was trying, you mentioned Tucker. He really can be boom or bust, because oftentimes he'll only attempt 4 or 5 shots. So he's got a real wide range of outcomes. So I was playing around with some lineups where you put Tucker as the captain, and then you can easily get Luka and Harden and Clint Capella and not have to go all the way down to the bottom for your last 2 guys. So I think a play like that is also worth considering.
Yeah, no, I've seen that done a few times where they just put the one guy that can either boom or bust in the captain spot, and that can like you said, pay dividends.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking back to that game with the Clippers and Celtics when Pat Beverly went off, and he was really low price, and the best lineups had him in the captain spot. So it can certainly work. All right, well, let's jump into the main slate.
Sounds good.
Starting at 6 o'clock Eastern, we have 4 games. And the first one is the Battle of New York. Brooklyn traveling over to Madison Square Garden to play the Knicks. These 2 teams played back in Game 2 of the season. It was close. Brooklyn won 113-109. Now we've got these teams coming in where the Knicks are on a back-to-back. They just lost Saturday to the Spurs, 111-104. Now they're going to welcome the Nets into town without Kyrie Irving. So, Miles, why don't you start out with the Knicks side of the ball? Who do you like over there?
So yeah, on the Knicks side of the ball, I'm looking at Julius Randle at 7,100. I mean, he just recently had that game where he put up 50 fantasy points. And he's going against the team that's notorious for not being the best against big front courts. So at 7,100, I think he's fairly priced, and he is that guy too that can have big games. And I mean, he's also the one of those guys that has a pretty safe floor. So I don't mind paying that price of 7,100 for him. The other guy I'm looking at as a potential value play there is Mitch Robinson. I mean, it's Fizdale, so minutes are all over the place. But at 4,500, he can get out there even in limited minutes and put up some pretty, impressive lines, especially with his blocks that he gets. And once again, yeah, he's a center going against the Brooklyn Nets. So those are the two guys I have for the Knicks side of the ball. What you got on the Brooklyn side?
On the Brooklyn side, I'm going to start with Dinwiddie. I've been playing him a lot with Kyrie out. I don't see any reason to stop here. His price has continued to go up, but at 7.7, I think he's a real strong core piece to the lineup. And then most of the other Nets are pretty reasonably priced, so I think it's an opportunity for a value play. And the two that I'm looking at are Jordan at 4.8 and then Shumpert at 3.4. He is, tiny bit of a narrative here going back to play against the Knicks where he used to play, but he's really been getting some minutes lately, even up to 24 minutes. And he's the type of player that can,
pop off once in a while.
Yeah, and get points for you in multiple ways, not just scoring. So I like Shumpert here. Jordan is a decent option. We're going to get to some centers later that I like better than Jordan, but that's not a bad price for him. And on the back to the Knicks side, I'm never going to argue against Randall, especially at 7.1. He's not probably going to fit most of my lineups. But I do like playing him. And Ntilikina, I think we've got to consider at 4.5. He had almost 40 fantasy points today, and he only took 9 shots. So he
had another up game today.
Yeah, another up game with the rebounds, assists, and steals.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can count on 40 DraftKings points, but
yeah,
he's still only 4.5K. He's getting good minutes.
I'm always kind of with the coach on this one. I'm not a huge fan of him. He fluctuates so much, and just over the few years, I'm like, I never trust him. He always has those games where he's like, oh, look at him, he's looking good. Oh, is he going to start taking off? Is he going to meet that potential they always speak about? But he always comes back down to earth.
He does. He's so boomer bust. So he's definitely a tournament play for me, not cash. And yeah, he could easily come back with 22 fantasy points in this matchup. It is a lower total, but I think he's worth considering. If you're going to play 5 lineups, you got to get him in there at least once, I think.
I mean, also, especially for GPP, he always makes a lot of sense for those kind of plays.
Excellent. All right, well, let's move on to game number 2. This one will have a higher total. Last time I checked here Saturday night, it hadn't posted yet, but this is going to be one of my 2 favorite games to stack on this slate. And, of course, this is the other 6 o'clock game, Sacramento traveling to the nation's capital to take on the Wizards. And these are 2 teams that are in the bottom third on the defensive side. Kings are 21st in defense. Wizards are last in defense. We keep mentioning that they're involved in shootout after shootout. So certainly an attractive game on paper. Why don't you start with the home squad, Myles? Who do you like for the Wizards?
Obviously Bradley Beal. There's only 2 people on this slate that are actually priced at above 10,000 on DraftKings, and that's Bradley Beal and Kawhi Leonard. And of those 2, I like Bradley Beal a lot more because, like you said, the Wizards are just pretty much in a shootout every single game. And the other thing too is with Kawhi, you got Paul George coming back into the fold, so that also kind of hurts his usage a bit there. But yeah, so Bradley Beal, I mean, he's just been on fire. He's averaging 37 points, 4.5 rebounds, 8 assists and 57 DraftKings points over the last 5 games. And I mean, he's had 2 60-plus draft point games within those 5. And, he is the main scoring option there. And, if they want the Wizards to win games, he's going to have to go out there and produce. The other guy I'm looking at on this side is he's been priced out quite a bit more than I'd like, is Davis Bertans. He's been lighting it up from 3-point land there. He's averaged 5 3-pointers a game over the last 3. I think he's been scoring at least 30 DraftKings points over the last 3, and they've been giving him the minutes because he's been producing. The other guy that I'm looking at as a value play is Ish Smith. Over the last 2 games here, he's averaged 32 DraftKings points, and he seems to be doing better now, almost coming off the bench, just like Isaiah Thomas was doing better in that position. And like you had mentioned, with them playing against the Sacramento Kings, which are, poor defensively, I think he makes a great flyer for sure.
Yeah, we would expect that he would come in against Yogi Ferrell, and I think he's gotten at least 24 minutes the last 2 games that you're describing those point totals. So yeah, Ish is a nice value play, 4.6, almost the same price tag as Ntilikina that we mentioned from the last game. So there's a comparison there. And I'm with you on Beal, 10.2. His price has gone up, but there's good reason for it. I'm also much higher on him on this slate than Kawhi. So he is the most expensive, but I do like him. He's going to be in the majority of my lineups. And I've also been all about Bertans lately. But, I loved him really the most when he was in that 4.3K range, and he's quickly shot up.
Yes, so, he has.
I certainly understand why you want to ride that hot streak. Certainly could see it continue in this game. My primary build, I think I'm going to leave him out. And hope that this might be where he doesn't quite. He kind of regresses a little bit and cools off.
Yeah, the one reason I still kind of was keeping on him though is just because like you said, this game shootout style, he's just been shooting from the 3-point line a whole bunch, so that's why I'm keeping him there as kind of one of the guys that I might go to.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm going to make 3 lineups, if I'm going to make 3 tournament lineups on this slate, I'm going to stack this game in one of them, and I'm going to stack Pelicans Clippers in one of them. So we'll get to that in a bit here. But in the game if in the lineup where I stack this, I'll probably put him in. So that's how I'll go about building up the Wizards side. On the Kings side, the big news is that Bogdanović is doubtful again with the hamstring issue. And last game he sat. Justin James came off the bench in that forward spot and got 32 minutes and had a real solid fantasy game, 14, 3, 3, and 1. So at 3.4K, he's going to probably be my number 1 value play on this slate with Bogdanović out. And I also like Corey Joseph at 4.9. Again, he's been inconsistent, but he's going to be going up against Isaiah Thomas and Ish Smith. So I really like that price tag. And interesting sort of that mid-tier pricing on the other guys. Hield at 7.2, Holmes 6.2, Bielitsa at 6,000. I'm not a huge fan of any of those as a one-off. So in my regular build, I probably will not play them. It is a little bit scary to continue to fade Hield at 7.2. Because he's got that 50 fantasy point upside. So when I stack the game, Hield will definitely be in that lineup. But for my other lineups, I will mostly fade these guys and maybe get a little bit of Holmes at 6.2, going up against that Wizards front court that, along with the rest of the squad, doesn't really slow anybody down.
Yeah, I like the calls on all that. The Buddy Hield call, I'm right there with you. He's been struggling a lot this year, and I think he's only eclipsed 40 fantasy points once this year so far. So, in this narrative as well is like it's just going to be a shootout, and he is a shooting guy, so he could easily go off for those 50 fantasy points that we're talking about.
Yeah, this could end up being a really fun game to watch if it does stay close and shoot out. with Beal, Bertans, Heel just lighting it up. I mean, this could certainly be one of those, 128 to 124 games, and you want to have a big chunk of it if it is. So this one's going to be something I'll be focused on for this slate for sure.
All right, sounds good. Are we going to move on to the next one?
Let's do it. Let's go to Denver for Game 3 on the evening slate. This is 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock for those in Vancouver. And it's Phoenix against the Nuggets. Phoenix is going to be on a back-to-back. They played Minnesota on Saturday. Close win, 100-98. Booker went off. And over on the Nuggets side, they are 5th in defense. They had a close win over the Celtics. They are 11-3. Myles, what do you think about that squad?
Yeah, on the Denver side here, I'm liking the price of Will Barton right now. He's come down in prices at 5,800. There was one game there where he had a pretty low point total and stuff, but that was due to a blowout because of Jamal Murray exploding for 39 points. And he's just a very versatile guy, he can kind of does it all. He can get you points, he can get you boards, he can get assists. So I'm liking his price a lot. The other guy who I've been looking at a lot on the Denver side too is Paul Millsap. To me, he's a really good cash play kind of guy because, over the last 7 games, he hasn't got below 30 fantasy points. Phoenix isn't amazing at defense in my opinion, and I feel like the Denver Nuggets here can put up a decent amount of points. The other guy that I've always been looking at, I've been keeping my eye on him, but he's, has been underperforming a bunch, is Gary Harris. But at this point too, he's down to 4,100. And I mean, his minutes haven't shrunk at all. They're always around that, 30 to 35 mark. And I mean, it just takes him getting a rhythm or, actually just attempting a few more shots, and he can easily hit value for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he's had some games historically where, he easily can go 35, 40 fantasy points, but he's just not shooting more than 10 times. So, he's a guy I'm sort of watching out of the corner of my eye, and the price keeps dropping, but keep waiting for him to be more aggressive. And for some reason, it hasn't happened. I've got to think it is going to happen soon. So I don't know if I'll be on him though, because I'm just not sure when to pull the trigger with Gary Harris. But I also agree with you on Barton. He's a guy I like to play a lot more, and I'm glad to see his price drop. So I am certainly interested in him at 5.8. But the big guy for the Nuggets, Jokic at 9.2, he's just been, a focus here of the fantasy industry.
Yes, he has.
Due to his underperformance, we've talked about him a lot on the show. He finally broke out against the Celtics with that triple-double, 64 fantasy points. And, impressive to me that it was a 96-92 game. So it's not like he needed some shootout to put up a huge numbers. And, he was in the 8K range for that game. Now he's up to 9.2. I'm going to play him, though, on this slate, along with Beal. Those are going to be my 2 high-priced players. And tempting to pair him with Murray, but I probably will fade Murray primarily. Again, I really like Dinwiddie in that price range at 7.7. So that's what I'm thinking about for Denver. Over on the Phoenix side, we've got to watch the news in the backcourt and the front court. Rubio is questionable. He did not play Saturday. And Baines is questionable. He did not play Saturday. If Baines plays, he's going to be in my lineup because he's only 4,000 even. And he's certainly underpriced based on his performance when he's been healthy this season. So that's very attractive. And the Rubio factor is going to impact my decision on Oubre and Booker. Booker, like I said, went off today, 35, 12, and 9. And he did that with going 0 for 5 on 3-pointers. So he had a monster game that we know he's capable of. but he just hasn't been hitting that ceiling with Rubio in the lineup. So with Rubio in the lineup, I'm going to shy away from him. I am going to keep my eye on Oubre, though. He's only 6.6. So assuming Rubio and Baines play, I'll be interested in Baines and Oubre, possibly Bridges at 4.1. But I still like that price for him. But there are some other guys we've mentioned in that 3,000 range that probably are a little bit stronger value play, I think, on this slate. So primarily Baines and Oubre for me. How about you?
Yeah, I like that call. With Bridges, I find that he has had a couple of good games here, but that's been with Rubio out. I feel like when Rubio comes back, he's going to regress back to what he was doing before, which was nothing too special. And then, I like Oubre as well. I mean, especially if Rubio's out, because he's just been balling out here over the last 3 games without Rubio. And then, if Baines is out, I have some interest in Frank the Tank there at 4,600. But if Baines is in, I'm definitely looking at Baines at the 4,000 price there.
Okay, yeah, that's good of you to mention Frank. His price still is 4.6, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what it was the last game, so that's stayed steady. Okay, good. Yeah, I like him. I like him as well if Baines is out. So, all right, anything else on that game?
I think that pretty much covers it all. And like with the Jokic thing there, I was looking at him, thinking about it, but my one thought is I was like, did he get up to play because it was against one of the top seeded teams in the league?
Right.
Because everybody's just coming saying, he's just been looking lazy, like he's been disinterested. So then I thought, he's just like, I'm gonna show up because I gotta show my stuff now against a team that matters.
It's possible. It is certainly possible, but I don't know. He got a haircut recently. He's looking a little slimmer. He's, he looks a little better.
He's got some self-care going now. You're thinking it's all going to come together.
Yeah, he's like, all right, let me get back in shape here. Let me clean this act up a little bit here because it's been a little sloppy so far.
Yes, it has.
So, and we all know that Jokic is often priced over 10K when he's rolling. So this is.
We all know too that he usually has a slow start to the season, so
that
could be the end of it.
This could be the end of it. So this is your chance to get him at 9.2. You heard it here first.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Let's do it. The final game here. All of a sudden, we're at Game 5 for the Sunday activity in the association, and it could be quite the late night hammer. We've got the Pelicans visiting the Clippers. And the total I'm seeing is 234. And the point of caution here, it certainly is. But the Clippers are favored by 12. Pelicans are coming in on a back-to-back. They're playing at Utah right now as we speak. So
it's a tough game for them.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. And we'll have some injury news to get to on that side. But why don't you lead off for us with the home team, the Clippers? Who do you like over there?
So, on the Clippers side, like we had mentioned before, Kawhi at 10.4 or 10.8?
10 even.
It was 10 even. Okay. So at Kawhi at 10 even, I'm still not a huge fan of that. With Paul George back in the lineup there, it's taking away a bit from him. And that's why I like Paul George a lot more at this position because he's 1,500 less at 8,500. And, he can do the exact same thing that Kawhi can do. And, he came back from that bilateral shoulder surgery, but it doesn't seem like that's affected him at all because over the last 5 games, since he's been back, he's averaging 44.5 fantasy points. So I like him a lot more in this position. And, they're going against one of the worst defenses in the league. So no reason why he can't just go out there and dominate and, get you all the value he can. The other guy I'm looking at is Montrezl Harrell. They've priced him down to 6,300. And, he's going against a New Orleans team that has 2 injured centers. We'll have to, wait and see if Jahlil Okafor is actually ruled in or out. But, I like him a lot at that price. He's been having a great season. And with him coming off the bench, too, and staggering against, the 2 big stars there, he's got great usage there. Then on the same note with that, you got Lou Williams, his his what do you want to call compadre there, and he's been going absolutely insane as well. And I mean, even with the big guys back, he still got 34 minutes and he got 26 points, 8 assists, and no reason why I can't see him doing the same thing against New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, that's a great word for those guys, compadres. I like that. They certainly are. I mean, they're almost attached at the hip with all the pick and rolls that they run, and they just have an excellent chemistry. I love watching those two guys work together. And you hit on the 4 big guys for the Clippers. We're just gonna all season we're gonna watch those guys, those 4. We're gonna look at their usage, look at their price tags, and I agree on this slate. Kawhi at 10,000. Paul George at 8.5. I just don't see the need to play Kawhi. I think you can really use that price saving, the price savings there. And I'm not even that interested in Paul George. I agree with you. It sounded like your favorite price on this team was Harrell, and for me it is as well, 6.3. These two teams played earlier in the season back on, it was only the 14th, so not too long ago. Now, Kawhi Leonard didn't play in that game. Brandon Ingram didn't play in that game. Harrell and Lou Williams actually started. So I think if you look at that box score, I think the numbers are a little bit inflated because of Ingram and Kawhi Leonard's absences. Yeah. But still, Harrell's going to play. He's going to play over 30 minutes. You would expect if this game is anywhere close. So I really like him at 6.3.
Yeah, honestly, and I was referencing the game they just played with both the superstars there with Lou Williams. So just to give that for reference, so people aren't going, oh well, the 2 stars are back. What's going to happen to his minutes? What's going to happen to his production? But yeah, he was out there and he proved that he can still do it all with those guys there.
Absolutely, yeah. I just like to look back at when teams have played each other, earlier in the same season.
I feel like most people do.
Yeah. And so that's, I think, the important thing to do is to make sure you're paying attention to, in that particular box score, who was in and who was out, of course. And like you mentioned, over on the Pelican side, Favors and Okafor are still out. They didn't play today. We don't expect they're going to play on Sunday. Hart is still out. Ball is back in the lineup, and the game just finished. He played 24 minutes. But for me, my primary interest on the Pelicans side is going to be Ingram. He had another strong game here on Saturday. He's at 8.4. So I like him better than Paul George just because I think he's going to get more usage. And I like him better than Drew Holiday. I think he's a little bit more reliable. They have similar price tags. Redick, what has been going off here, he's shooting really well. 6.1 is a little bit more than I want to pay for him. But the guy that's going to be in almost all my lineups is Jackson Hayes at only 4.3. I'm going to lock him in as one of my centers. He did play 30 minutes tonight, had a solid game, but I'm going to look to him to come back again and be strong here on the back-to-back. What do you think of the Pelicans side?
Yeah, I like most of your calls there. Brandon Ingram was my number one choice on that side. Like you said, he's just been so consistent this year. He's only scored, I think the only game there he scored below 36 fantasy points was one where he got hurt. And then besides that 136 fantasy point game, the rest of them have all been above 40. So, not much to not like about that. And then I was looking at Drew Holiday myself. He's been in a rhythm lately here, but the thing is too, he is going against one of the, the Clippers are in the top 10 of the defense here. And, if he's going against Pat Bev, he can always, get in the best of everybody's head there. So it's something to watch, but he was one of the guys I had noted. And then, I think Jackson Hayes, if he's getting 30 minutes a game, he's definitely in play, especially at 4,300.
Yeah, you and I had mentioned at some point just how attractive this game is as a whole, and I think it is worth stacking. You can easily stack Ingram, Hayes, Lou Williams, Harrell, and Paul George. If you go with those 5, you're going to be able to fill out your lineup with 3 guys from some of the early games, because we mentioned 3 or 4, maybe even 5 decent value plays earlier in the slate.
Yeah, you had Eamon Shumpert, and you had one other one that was really nice that I liked. Was it
Justin James?
Yes.
3.4.
Yeah.
Baines, if he plays, at 4,000.
Yeah. So yeah, no, there's definitely some good value. So we can definitely, get kind of a somewhat stars and scrubs kind of going on.
Yeah, the only challenge with this particular slate is that three of the guys I like the most, and I guess you're not on Jokic as much in this slate, but he's center only on DraftKings. Jackson Hayes is center only, and Baines is center only. So you can't play all three of them.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate.
Baines isn't power forward center, no?
No, I thought he was. I thought he might be, so I had to double check on that.
Okay. Because I feel like at one point he might have been.
He may have been earlier in the season. I was thinking the same thing, but right now he's center only.
Gotcha. Yeah, that throws a wrench into things a bit then. But yeah, no, I really like this game a lot. It's going to be one of my favorite games to target.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why it's good for our listeners to get this nice and early with their Hawaiian Isles Kona coffee, in the morning, and you have a chance to follow the news and tinker with the lineup. So, please make sure to check out at Hoopball Fantasy. We get all the up-to-date information there throughout the day, and you can follow Myles at Myles6565. Myles spells his first name Myles. You can find me at Language Olympic. You can follow the coach at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. And, of course, Mr. Apotria, you can find him at MikeApotria. All right, Myles, any final thoughts on this Sunday slate?
No, I think we covered it all.
I think we did. We did our best. So thank you for joining us for the Sunday edition. And be sure to tune in tomorrow for another edition of Hoopball DFS Today. Thank you for joining us.
Have a good night, guys.
This has been a Hoopball presentation.